Fine Young Cannibals were three guys from Birmingham, England, who formed a band in 1984. They recorded two albums and then split in 1992, 4 years later, presumably with a big wad of money each because they'd actually been very successful. They've had a couple of reunions since, but no obvious serious attempts at prolonged existence. Hi, my name's Dan. So this was the second album by Fine Young Cannibals and was the more successful of the two. Not that the first one wasn't successful, but this one was pretty mega successful. It got to number one in the charts in the UK and in Australia and in Austria, and significantly in the United States, where being a number one album at that time meant you had a lot of cash. Musically, so this is a mixture of 60s doo-wop vocal soul and what I might think of as dancey Prince-like soul. I mentioned Prince there. The producer of half of the tracks of the album was a guy who also acted as a producer for Prince. They had asked for Prince himself, but apparently he said he didn't do producer for hire work. So they tracked this guy down instead and used him. You can tell. So some of the tracks sound very like they've got some similarities with Prince. Actually, I felt there was some similarity to some stuff by INXS, although INXS are a rock band. It's the same kind of sense of space and use of little twiddly bits in between that I think made me feel like it was INXS-like. Let's talk about the snare drum from She Drives Me Crazy. So hopefully that's the introductory music for this video, depending on how copyright goes. It's apparently very recognizable. I would say it's hugely recognizable. I heard it as soon as it came on. I know the track quite well anyway. And I was listening to it thinking, how on earth did they make that sound? It sounds a bit like a small metal container of some kind being hit, but somehow it's got a little bit more reverb or longevity than you'd expect from something quite small. And apparently, so I'm going to simplify this, apparently it was made by taking the skin off a snare drum and then hitting it with a wooden ruler and then taking that sound and playing it through a loudspeaker that was sat face down on a snare drum with the skin on and then recording the resulting sound from that, which is quite complicated, but they did get obviously quite a unique sound out of it. Mentioning samples, there's quite a few bits in here where there's obviously sample technologies being used. This is fairly early days still, just tail end of the 80s for sample use. There's one track which uses a drum loop, which is the classic Funky Drummer drum loop by James Brown's band. That's in I'm Not the Man I Used to Be. And as a result, it sounds to me really like Massive Attack because they use this sample. It is apparently, for a while, I don't know if it still is, it was the most used drum loop sample in music. What else can I say? There's a couple of pop rock numbers, so it's not all quite so souly. As I said, there are several songs that are kind of more reminiscent of 60s vocal soul, kind of Motown sounding stuff. Roland Gift, who's the singer, has got some his vocals are very recognizable. It's iconic sound, partly because he sounds quite unique, but partly because they were so successful that then becomes an icon. It sounds to me at times almost like the voice is breaking up, as if his vocal cords are very quickly switching on and off. It's not quite a tremolo, it's more kind of almost like a crackle in his voice, but it's certainly a distinctive tone. Overall, the album, I would say, was definitely an album of its times. It sounds very much like some of it sounds 80s. Okay, so I say that, actually, there's the 60s stuff, But then the other stuff is sounding like the stuff that was leading into the rave culture in the early 90s. I liked it. I wouldn't say I liked it a lot. I was a little bit surprised I didn't like it more. I do like the first track, She Drives Me Crazy. I was hoping the rest would be of a higher quality, and maybe my expectations were wrong. So maybe that's why I didn't like it more. It's highly likely that if you're watching this, you know this album, or at least you know some of this album. I'd love to know what you think about it. Please let me know in the comments down below. That's it from me for now.
Say